What is up, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? Day traders, plus swing traders. Hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. Hope you guys are feeling great. Whew. Got Albert in the house. Good morning to you. Good morning to Anna, Andy. We got Ann. Good morning to Bill, Brad, Brian, Carolyn, Frank, GXM. That's a birth certificate name. We got Jay. Good morning to you. JT, Justin, Lauren, Lucian, Marius, Tim. Good morning to all my people out YouTube. Samuel says, "Love you, man. Love you too." We got Mustafa. What is happening? He says, "Hey, first, but no, Samuel was in there first. Samuel was in there first, but I appreciate it." Tokyo in the house. What is happening? Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Mar, good to see you. What's happening? But yeah. Woo. Spy. We got PPI out today, so it did come in light. Little reason to celebrate for the Bulls. Big one is CPI tomorrow, so we'll see if we last. And then you also have banking earnings coming out tomorrow as well. So we are going to start to kick off the earnings season a little bit, and all of this interest stuff will be long forgotten pretty soon. Would be my guess, but we'll see what happens. Otherwise, the other pretty interesting fun fact, and interesting how the price bounced right where it did. But yesterday at open, we were already kind of closing that gap from the election. So this is where the results of election came in. We had that Trump gap. Everything looked good. We pulled back. We closed it right into that VPOC. So especially for anybody in the mastery classes, but um, anybody in general that is following VPOC, very very interesting level of support. We could get a little bit lower, so I don't know if the selling's over. We still have to survive tomorrow, and then we have to get into the bank earnings. But then again, J.P. Morgan's gonna be a big one, so what they start talking about is gonna be huge. So we'll see if we could hold on to this gap. If we sell off and we start to clear, I still do have one more spot a little bit below us that we could get to. That would take us into 570.31. So not overly bullish yet, not overly bearish, just kind of waiting, seeing what happens. But otherwise, we do have an interesting looking little pennant pattern kind of setting up in the market, which roughly just take these lines with a grain of salt, but something like this, maybe something to this extent. And we're kind of just channeling down into maybe this longer term pennant pattern. Be interesting if we even see the 200 at one point. But we could still be in this chop, which doesn't have to end today just because PPI came out. So keep in mind, nothing really fundamentally changed except for a little less concerns maybe about interest until tomorrow. And we'll see how CPI goes. And then we'll see if Jerome Powell changes his tune. But until we break that, that would be the key. So I don't, again, I don't know how far this thing is going to run, how long this is going to take to really start getting us out of this little consolidation pullback zone, but I think ultimately that's what it is. But we have a lot of reasons to at least celebrate for bulls today. We are back above the 100. Yesterday was a retest gap. It did fully retest as well, and today you're getting a little bit of a gap up as well. So this would be a retrace gap for today. Again, decent open to it. One big concern, which we had a little bit of support resistance back in this 584.09 zone previously back in October until we got the election gap to get above it. Now we're almost right back at it. So we are opening into a decent resistance spot, even from this previous move. The next spot up here would be somewhere around 584.38. That's the key level I would look at. That also does align perfectly with the very highs of that last pivot. So if we start breaking above that, then I am looking for a little bit further of a push to 588.57. And then maybe we could start to break out of this little downtrend and maybe we have enough momentum, but we'll have to kind of see. We probably need earnings to really start jolting this market back in a serious bullish market. Otherwise, I am looking for a little bit of a retest. We'll see if it comes in. To the downside, I'm looking for first stop would be 581.78. I think that'd be doable. Otherwise, all the way back down into 580.19, and then use that to see if we could bounce later today. So I'm cautious that open. I'm not overly bullish, even though the market is Riposaurus Rexing. We'll see what happens from there. But Qs, the Qs are also retest gap, decent level that we're kind of crossing, which The next resistance would have been 507.63. This tells me that we might have a small pullback resistance, a small pullback, but if we could hold it, that's all we get. Otherwise, the real retest spot probably somewhere down to this 503.36. Really, really good gap on the Qs. I think Qs have a little bit more strength on it than the SPY does for today. Big concern, obviously, would be some of the resistance. The next big one would be 509.15. I think we struggle there. If we could get through it, we might have a move to 514.33, but I think that would be my stretch goal for today. So probably a little bit more chop, especially again, still we got to clear through this CPI before we really start getting some traction. And then only at that point we might get traction. We'll see. We'll see what the results are, and where we kind of want to spin that narrative, or where really mainstream media wants to spin the narrative and what we should be concerned about as the next point. And then we just hear that news cycle over and over again, which might very well be earnings, but very close into election. I'm sure you hear a lot about immigration, tariffs, what Trump ends up deleting from the Biden playbook and re-putting in and all that fun stuff. So we'll see. Otherwise, we got TLT. This one, bond people still not believing it. Even PPI cannot save the bonds. So bonds still down. Long-term bond people still feeling like they just don't believe any of this. So we'll see what happens. But a little bit of a hammer yesterday. I would watch this one. Nothing crazy in terms of volume. So even if you break, it's kind of a weak inside day candle. Some of the two bullish candles, and even both of those bullish candles being retest, they did have a little bit more volume in it. And then really for overall long-term confirmation, you got to take out really this 88.45 at this point. But even some of the volume starting to pick up into this downtrend too. So bond people not on the same page. They're not liking it. 10-year hasn't rolled over, and TLT is still sinking. Yep. Uh-huh. That's what I'm looking at there too. I I don't know. Little suspect. CLF. Yeah, they were trying to make a bid for X, I believe, yesterday. We're trying to get some finances together to get it. Maybe strike a partnership somewhere. But CLF, really good bullish engulfing candle. Okay close, not a bad one, not a terrific one. The morning looks a lot better today as far as the open goes. But if we could have got a little close, maybe like 10.54, that would have been a much stronger close. But it is a retest gap for today. See if we pull back. I would look to see if we can get back into this 10.39 zone. That would be a spot that I would look to see if it could break. They are going to be news heavy, so we're still going to hear potential deals about X and all that stuff um, if they're able to buy it, if they're not. So you might be in a trade on this one and then just gets rammed the opposite direction, or maybe you get a good push into your favor. We'll see. But there will be some probable headlines coming out today about CLF, I would assume, which might be decent. But on a technical basis, yeah, get back into this 10.39, 10.38 zone. And I think that would be an interesting, at least interesting trade. I would need this is a big massive candle we had yesterday. So I would need probably some intraday candles, some interesting volume throughout the day. Otherwise, I don't really have a good stop placement, and that's my concern on this one. But if you're looking for, if you're in this thing, you got that breakout, and it starts to sell, I wouldn't panic yet. It still looks pretty fantastic. Pins, decent green candle yesterday. Nice little bouncing spot that we got in from the lows of the day yesterday, right around 29.09. It did come down a little bit further, right around 28.99, but decently strong close. Nothing too crazy. You did close right into a resistance. Again, I would look for a small pullback on this one. Nothing too crazy. I'd really want this pullback to run us into. Maybe you get a high wave candle, $30.44. The other side of a trade is how much money you can make on this one. Um, You have a little resistance, probably about $30.66. You also got your 20 EMA holding you down. All these moving averages are still facing bearish. So on the way up, that's all going to act as some kind of resistance. You don't really have your next, you have a mini target at 30.89, 31.09, and then the real target for me would be about 31.44. But there is a lot of resistance in the path. You got to clear the 20, you got to clear the 50, and then a few previous zones we got to claw back. But If this one wants to pull back a little bit, anything below, let's say $30.40, I would let this thing try to continue, see if we get back down to like 29.98. Considering that it is on a little bit of a more bearish trend. If you're looking for a breakout or swing, I think you have a good stop placement at least. I would throw a stop somewhere around $28.86. Below this candle, below that previous pivot, and then if you do get a little pullback and setting a swing up, that might not be bad. It might take some time to clear some of that resistance out of the way. Tesla. The Tessie looking real strong yesterday into the close. Looking real strong. And then today, and I did trade this one pre-market, so I got in right before the PPI bullish direction, sold I think I was out at like 414.20, so I made a 1.1 on it early this morning. Other than that, it is still a retest gap. Interesting levels that it's clearing. It had a lot of bullish sentiment toward the end of the day. Let's take a look at that one. That is just Rampage City. And then continuation after hours, just no red candles in the last hour of the day, roughly. So really, really good close. Breaking out, we are above that 395 zone that we were talking about for a while. I still have some options on this one, so I do have a couple calls that have a little bit of time on it, which is fantastic. Those should be up decent this morning. Um, I think you have room. We're in an interesting spot. This is a retest gap. Probably, I think you get a fade. But the thing that I don't know is we already kind of did that pre-market, right? So we already got into this, and that's why I ended up going long. Right into this 408 zone. That's where that previous pivot was. But again, we already had a decent pullback pre-market. That might be enough. Otherwise, to the higher side, you have 422.14. I think my plan on Tesla is to do nothing. I think I'm just going to watch it, see which way it wants to go first, and then maybe look if we aggressively, quickly push into this 422.75, 421.75, 422 zone. I think I'm going to look to go short. If this one wants to drop, have a quick pullback, the moves that open have to be relatively quick. Otherwise, if it's a slow move in either direction or we just chop sideways, I think we lose a lot of the edge on it. But if we could get another pullback right into this 408 zone, I think that's where I'd start to establish position. It could come all the way back, retest yesterday's VPOC 394.64, but really good gap, clearing a lot of resistance. I don't really know if I want to see it back at 395. Or if it does, maybe tomorrow's a better day to after it retests to try to play it bullish or figure out where we open below or above that 395. But so far, so good. If you're in it, looks pretty terrific. You do have still about from here $7, $8 to the higher side. And then if you could clear this 422, that will get you room up to like 432.35. And we'll see if we get a stronger move. But it is a retest for today, so I'd try to curb some enthusiasm on the bullish side, at least immediately until you get some kind of at least better, tighter setup, some better risk reward on a certain trade. AVGO. This one was strong yesterday, right out of the gate. Big strong candle, and then it kind of pulled back, faded, and just hung around for most of the rest of the day. Nice looking gap up on this one. Also retest gap, clearing the previous day's red candle though. Yeah, it looks like we're either right at the high or penny too higher than it. Also, as of now, we'll have to see where this one opens. But if we could open above 227.46, we might have a little bit more room up. That would take me to 229.41. If you could break through that, I think a really good resistance on this one, 231.36. But there's going to be another tiny resistance in front of it. Other than that, so this retested this VPOC, perfect. This candle retested that VPOC, perfect. Could be setting up to go longer term bullish. I would love to see a pullback on this one. Love to give me maybe a high wave candle, depending on where that lower wick comes in. Biggest concerns for a day trade would be targets, but it could garnish a little bit of momentum into a bullish direction. AMD. Leonard wants to take a look at some micro devices. Yeah, technically retest gap from yesterday. It held on. I do have the 414 puts I sold expiring this Friday. So I'm gonna be biased on this one. We got down there. We were close. But that's a good looking gap. We are up toward the very end, so I'm not so concerned with yesterday's candle. Although you have almost tweezer bottoms. That's interesting. But I'm not really concerned with yesterday's candle. I'm concerned with this candle before. If we open inside this candle, I think we probably get at least a little pullback, some profit taking. I'm not sure if that runs us into like 117.93, that runs us into 117.34 or better spot, which would be whatever. But I think you get into like 116.52 would be really the spot that I think this one holds. If we're opening above this candle and we've cleared through most of it, you have a little resistance. I don't think it's going to be a huge one, but there is a resistance at 119.48. There is a little resistance at 120.36. I think my target would be 120.66 with also the ability to get up to 121.69. So I do already have this one pretty high on my list. This one would be a high wave candle I would look to play. If we get some indecision and I could take a break on this one, I think I would, knowing there is some levels of resistance. I'm not sure how strong they are though. So I think we could make a decent move on AMD. There's definitely a lot of bears being trapped on this gap down, so clearing most of the volume already. But inside candle, see if we get a pullback, and maybe we come up with some tighter stops on that one. Nvidia and Unity software. Uh, Retest gap right into resistance. Unfortunately, I think this one is a fade. Maybe it's not. Maybe it doesn't fade. I don't think I could go long on this one. So again, just because it is maybe not a long, I don't think I could take this one short. It has a decent amount of room to the downside, but we could get caught up at 135.37. I don't know how strong that is. I would think a much stronger level if we get back down to 134. It does have the potential to fully retest and even come into the VPOC. So I think you have more room to the downside before you really run into a lot of resistance. If you start clearing, if you want to take a stab at it, you start getting above 136.10. Um, you might have some room to 140, but I think there's a hefty load of resistance in between that. So I don't know if I have that much edge on this one. That is a great retest spot that we're going to be opening right into with a pretty decent retest gap. Would make sense if this one fades. So I'd be careful on this one. And we do want AMD to pull back a little bit, but AMD kind of definitely more beat up than NVIDIA is as well. Unity software. Uh, Carolyn, you're also on hosting panels. Just FYI, if you don't mind changing that to everyone, just so people just don't think I'm talking to myself. A lot of times I am. A lot of times I am, to be fair. All right, we got Unity software. This is right above the 100 EMA. Big untested I think you could get targets up to 2407. That's probably where our real resistance is. But for a day trade purpose, I would say that's more swing trade. Day trade purpose, you can probably get to 2222 if we do have a nice strong day and everyone's hopeful on CPI for tomorrow. I would look for, I think, targets for today, 2268. That is, even that target is slightly above the 200 EMA, so still could be a little challenge getting in. But I think maybe we get a wick up, something like that. And then extended targets, if this thing really goes nuts and the market is just looking amazing, $23. So you have a little bit of room in this one. Again, retest gap, probably not going to be buying it at open. The only thing that might trick me into doing that is the fact that we are above that 100. Otherwise, I think this one, ignore the 100. I think it comes down to 2166. That would give you a much better entry, probably some kind of risk with the stop anywhere under 2150. Uh, Depending on how this smaller time frame candles look, but somewhere under 2150 and then some kind of retest back in this 2168, 2170 zone would be a at least a good try on it. We got GNRC. Alan says, "Oops." Yeah, not a problem. Ooh, I gotta stop my comment mid comment. GNRC. I don't know if it has good short float. I don't think it does. 4.37, nothing crazy. It's a lot of buying. Man, that's a good double bottom off of a 200. We're above the 20 at this point. I don't think that one matters as much. You do have bulls that piled in on this candle. Didn't really have too much red on their accounts since they did start buying off that 200. You also had some bulls piling in here as well. Just based on the amount of bulls that bought recently, I'm gonna have to say this one tries to pull back 161.29, but we're breaking a good pivot, and I think you have your next resistance somewhere around 165, slightly above it, 165.10. All right, I'm gonna add this one to the list. Uh, I'll go high wave candle on it if we get it. Yesterday's VPOC, that is all the way down at 156.10, but that was a retest from here. I would love to see some of those decent bullish volume increasing. All those guys are profitable. Yeah, let's see if we get a high wave candle, high wave indecision. It looks pretty fantastic. The question for me, I don't want to go bearish on it, that's for sure. But it's just a matter of how we can get this thing actually set up. I like it. All right, I know I'm missing some things. SPY we did cover. Real virtual demand. Happy New Year to you too. Bitcoin we did not cover. I thought I saw coin on the list too. We got Bitcoin. That one is surviving right now. A really good wick. That one probably caused a little fear panic. People might have sold. Um, to me, and just like the SPY, just how we kind of drew that line down on the SPY, I think something like this is where Bitcoin's sitting at. So really good support, really good support, really good support. We broke support. Everyone cried. And then not only right now did we battle back in a bullish direction, but we are looking to maybe make another push. Still inside here, so we might do something like this and then break. But that looks pretty strong. If you have stops on Bitcoin, I'd be throwing it right underneath that candle. That looks like a trap and a half. So Bitcoin could be kind of waking up a little bit. That might be good for the MSTRs. That might be good for the Mars, the Riots, the Coinbases, the Robinhoods even. But Coinbase looks decent. You got one little support, one little resistance to 6407. If you can start breaking out of that, you got a lot of room back to a retest up to 290. Pretty terrific on that one. Again, a lot of these things, yesterday we did run bullish. We finished the day actually green in some spots. Rivian. Rivian is nice gap and go right into a resistance. Depends on where this one opens. Right now, we are actually above that resistance. 1392. Let me see if there's news on Rivian. Japan fires starting gun on global wave of auto mergers. Heard on the street. I don't know what that means. This was yesterday though. Yeah, I don't know. That is a confusing way to put any sentence, to be honest. Otherwise, you got room up to, I think, right now, I think you got room up to 1422, probably a little chop in between it, but that would be where my target's at. If you could break 1422, next stop, and I think that's a strong one, 1466. But yeah, Rivian, nice gap and go on that one. I would continue to try to figure out how to get in that bullish off of a good bounce spot too. MOS, this one looks like it's ready to capture some more dollars in the market. Maybe not that much room. You got 27.54. This one usually trades kind of choppy and flat, not huge candles. So be careful of that one. I used to trade this one all the time. But yeah, looks like you got room all the way up to like 27.54 for that. Let's see what else we got. J and J. And then I got Uber and Oxy on the list too. J and J for right now, not doing much. I think at open, You have probably better opportunities elsewhere. I don't really see anything crazy on this one that would get me real excited. For a directional point in terms of swing trading, this one is been beaten up for a decent amount. We're still below, I think, until we really start capturing 144.19. And at this point, I think I'd want to get above at least this candle for a swing trade. So maybe some kind of entrance 145.76, and then stop would be down to 140.57. Really, we don't really know. We could run into 146.25. So if we get above that, that would give us good clearance to like 149.15. But maybe still inside some candles for right now. Oxy is again nice little uptrend, good volume. This would indicate that you are probably getting some kind of potential reversal. Also, it was a gap and go, starting to clear some pivots. Terrific close on this candle yesterday, as long as we can stay above 51.98. Most likely, longer term, what happens, and maybe we get up to this 200. I think even this line here, we're above that one. So maybe you end up getting into this 200, you get your bounce back down to about 50, and then if it wants to start settling up to the bullish side, but that's a good volume candle you'd want to watch for. 3 bar reversal down there. We've just ran a lot already. But for right now, inside day, and again, not any kind of really, it's actually bearish gap. Obviously, anything that happens in the oil industry will affect Oxy, but you got 52.72 would be your resistance. You could break out of that. I would probably try to target that 200. I'm not sure if you get there today, but at least longer term for sure. We got Microsoft MSFT. We got a couple seconds left too. Microsoft gapping above that 200. Yeah, I'm gonna put this one higher on my list. I love that location. We got that bounce off of yesterday. Good location. I would really want to see this thing stay above 415.94. It is inside day candle, but you are right, slightly above that 200. Targets on this one, I think you get up to 420.51. Start breaking that. Watch for 422.68 and watch for 424.39. But yep, definitely moving that one higher on my list for sure. Let's see. Do I have any others out there? I think that covers it. Beautiful. LA in the house. Hope you are doing well, Mr. Confidence. There's no fires. Let me see. 3382. That's one that I did miss. Uh yep, 50% retracement. Watch this one again. We don't really know what there's no gap on it because it's just trades. But that is a 50% retracement. See if it comes down a tad more. We already got there. So yeah, maybe a buying spot on that one. Otherwise, I'd have my stops to anywhere below 23.78. Everybody out in YouTube land, you guys are absolutely incredible. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe buttons if you guys have not done so already. And I will catch